there's some cute thing about a guy who goes to his doctor and says, he says, doctor, I don't know what to do. My wife always loses her temper. I don't know how to deal with it. Well, this is just important. The godly soul conflict is unnatural. Forgive to return to inherent unity. Okay. Just jumping here. Okay, putting out the fire. So the doctor, my wife has a temper tantrum every day. She blows a fuse. I don't know how to put up with it anymore. Doctor says, I'll tell you exactly what to do. I have a remedy for that. Amazing. Wow, what's the remedy? He says, the second you see your wife losing her cool, take a glass of water, take a drink, and don't swallow. Hold the water in your mouth until she either leaves the room or goes to sleep. And then you can swallow. Okay? So the guy does that. He holds the water 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Wife leaves the room and he swallows. Next day he does the same thing. 2 weeks later, firstly, his wife is not having as frequent tantrums. And things are much calmer. Things are like diffusing much more easily. Comes back to the doctor and says, you're a miracle worker. And the doctor explains to him that's very simple. And that is, when there's something unhealthy going on and you feed it, you're supporting it. If you don't feed it, it's going to dissipate. It's going to disappear. It's a matter of time. That's all. It's going to disappear. What we do a lot of times, gosh, you can't imagine how many times I've done this, right? Someone says something that's inflammatory, right? That pushes your buttons, right? What do? You feed it. And boy, there's nothing that they want more than that reaction. They got their reaction and then it turns into a whirlwind. 3 hours later, you're both more miserable than you've been for a while, right? And you're questioning whether this relationship can even work, right? And it's all because of one thing. It's all because we actually fed the unhealthiness. So the beginning of any type of an unhealthy interaction, the first step is don't feed it. Don't feed it more than it is. Just let it be. Don't add to it. Adding to it is really the danger. Let's read text number 5 from the Talmud. It's on page 241. You see number 5?
The world endures only because of those who choose to remain silent.
Very good. The way I like to describe this is very simply, if you ever played ping pong, if someone hits the ball to you and you don't hit the ball back, the game is over because they have no one to play the game with. So there's no game to play. So if someone says something inflammatory and you don't respond, guess what? It falls flat. It's got nowhere to go. And as the person learns that you're not going to play that game, they will stop playing the game. They may not believe you the first time. Maybe you were lucky once and you didn't comment, but they know you already. 20 years you're commenting, right? But now you're changing the game. You're not playing anymore. That actually dispels already a large part of the problem, so things don't get beyond where they need to go. That's the very first thing that we need to do in unhealthy situations. And another little point. Let's go to figure 6.1. One party chooses to terminate the active quarrel. It takes two. What's the phrase? It takes two to tango, right? Tango, right? It takes two to tango. Yeah, you just can't do the tango on your own. Okay, so there's another important thing though in this phase, and that is, and this is really hard for the ego. This is really hard for the ego, and this may be your weakness. Okay, this may be your weakness, but if you practice, you can build it into a strength, and that is maintain connection even when there's hurt. Maintain connection even when there's hurt. Offer them something. Ask them if they need something. You still say, I love you before you go to sleep. Whatever the circumstance is, because you know you're getting past this. Not now, but we're going to get past it. Because when it becomes something that where you no longer, you disconnect, right? That makes it much harder to come back together. Because now there's a war going on. There's a silent war going on. There's a Cold War. So you want to avoid the Cold War developing. Some people are experts at Cold Wars. Experts, right? So if you're the expert at the Cold War, stop it. Practice. It's really hard to stop. It's really, really hard. If you're the Cold War person, it's really, really hard to stop. Like, one party can't stop coming back. Like, well, I want to resolve it now, right? And then the other party is like, they can't come to the table at all. Just leave me alone. Stay away from me. Both have to come in moderation. We're in relationship. We're going to have to deal with this, but it's not right now, right? But just maintain some type of a connection. That's very, very important. So the first thing is putting out the fire. Don't let the fire grow. Cut off the loop of negativity. And the way you do that is by remaining silent, which for certain people is really, really hard. Okay. Second thing is to speak up. That once the inflammatory flames are gone, then you have to then speak up depending on who you are in the event that took place. If you are the one who instigated, then you need to find the humility to actually reconcile. If you instigated, you have to find the humility to initiate reconciliation. I want to say this. When you are the person who initiated, who instigated, number one, you have to have enough humility to acknowledge that you instigated. I said something inflammatory. Often we're always blaming the other person. Always blaming the other person. Maybe there's no excuse for ever saying something inflammatory. Maybe. Is that possible? Maybe we should never say something inflammatory. And so there is no excuse. They may have said something inflammatory, but I could have kept quiet. I said something nastier. Now I have an excuse. It's not an excuse. So number one is taking responsibility. In relationships, they get fixed when we take responsibility for what we're doing fully and honestly. And that's really hard to do. For me to tell my spouse, I should not have said that, is humility. That's, the tail between my legs like I've never done it before, right? It's really, really hard the first time you do that. And the second and third time. With time, it gets a lot easier because you actually begin to see that people respect you more when you do that. You don't fall out of the relationship when you do that. You actually grow in the relationship when you do that, right? But it's very, very hard. Very, very hard. What I just want to emphasize is, yes, this is very, very hard. But there's something that each and every one of us can always do that will really move things forward if we are willing to do that. Then we're being honest, taking responsibility. And I want to say also that when you do something that's surprising, I'm talking in marriage language, if that's okay. When you do something that shocks your spouse, that they think you would never do, in the form of humility, like maybe acknowledging or whatever it may be, you actually give them permission to do something that you believe they would never do. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that they will, right? But that's the best chance you will give them to be able to. Your humility will open up the door for their humility. It gives them the safety to do that. If you can say, I was wrong, that makes it much easier for them to say it.